All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, another WNBA regular season video. In this video, it is time once again for the yearly tradition or the seasonal tradition where we talk about the biggest losers of the WNBA season, the NBA season. Obviously, this one is the WNBA video where we talk about the biggest losers of the 2026 WNBA season. We're going to talk about teams that maybe made some signings in free agency that didn't work out. Maybe the roster construction just isn't it. Maybe they made a trade that hasn't worked out. And something new, I think for this video in particular, is we're going to talk about a team that is probably going to make the playoffs, but still it's going to be a disappointment for them. And I feel like their fans would agree with that this is not the season they wanted to have. But we'll get to that in a little bit. If you like what I have to say, like the video. If you have any opinions, comment down below. And if you just like the vibes, consider subscribing. So in this video, we're going to talk about the Chicago Sky, the Phoenix Mercury, the Los Angeles Sparks, and the Dallas Wings. That's the team that's probably going to make the playoffs that I think is just it's gonna be disappointing, and the fans are gonna be upset. I feel like those fans in particular have been upset all season, even though they are a playoff team. Now, like I said at the beginning, some of these teams, it's the lack of talent, it's talent being underused, it's the coaching, it's the front office. That's why I don't have any players in front of you, because the players on almost all these teams aren't really to blame. We are going to talk about some of the players on these teams because they're on the team, but this video isn't going to be me smearing anybody's name, because I think all these teams have a surplus of talent, or at least some serviceable talent that put on any other team in any other situation, they could be a really good piece for a really good competitive team. Alas, they are stuck on these bad teams where maybe they are willingly there. Maybe they, in the off season, this past one, took the money and said, you know what, I'll take the money for 1 year and then I'll leave. That's also a situation that we can talk about. But yeah, for the most part, I really want to talk about the teams because these teams are just ran or run badly. And we can start off with something, I guess, a little bit easier, and we could diagnose the issues a little bit more, um, a little bit better. It's the Chicago Sky. Coming into this season, um, especially coming off the offseason that they had, trading Angel Reese, bringing in some surprise names to Chicago, their practice facility not being open already on the timeline that they thought it would be. You had some mixed hopes about this team, maybe. When I read you some of these names, Azare Stevens, Skylar Diggins, Dejanay Carrington, Natasha Cloud, Camila Cardosa, Rakia Jackson, Gabriela Jaquez coming off a national championship. And even as we got deeper into the season, you had names like Sydney Taylor, who's been lights out for them, been maybe the only bright spot for them in the long term. Courtney Vandersloot coming back from injury, looking more than serviceable. I didn't think she would look serviceable, but she has looked serviceable. Um, you're asking me what went wrong with this team? Well, the first thing that went wrong was they didn't start the season healthy. I think they started the season with, let's see who was healthy at the beginning of the season. It was like Azare, Skylar Diggins, Cloud was healthy, Camila was healthy, Rakia Jackson was healthy, Gabriela Jaquez was healthy. So you were missing essentially Courtney Vandersloot. Sydney Taylor hadn't yet really earned her minutes yet, so I'm not saying she was injured, but she was not in the rotation. And then you get dealt a really bad hand when Rakia Jackson goes down with a season-ending knee injury. You kind of flounder around for a little bit, have some good moments against some good teams, but can't really capitalize on the wins or you being ahead to get the wins. And then you have the looming thought right before All-Star break that Courtney Vandersloot was going to make her season debut after missing a whole calendar year of WNBA basketball, because she had a knee injury the season prior, so she was coming back. And then with her coming back, that creates a very big logjam at the guard spots because you have Diggins, you have Vandersloot, you have Dejanay Carrington, who wasn't playing quite yet. Was she playing? No, she wasn't playing. She was still rehabbing. Um, you have Natasha Cloud as well, you have Sydney Taylor. So you have all these names, and Courtney Vandersloot has a friend in the front office, a longtime friend who would, I think, die on the sword for her at this point. And they essentially kick Skylar Diggins to the curb. They say she has an injury. I don't believe that for one bit. I think they just told her she's not going to play or she's going to have to come off the bench. And Skylar Diggins is more than capable of being a starter level player. I don't think she had a great year this past year in the basketball that she played, but um, doing Skylar dirty like that for Courtney Vandersloot, who in hindsight probably has ended up having a better season in less games than Skylar, but in the moment you look at it and be like, why are you clearing space for Courtney Vandersloot when she's coming off an injury? You know, um, we talk about all this stuff, right? I'm saying all these names, and a lot of these players have been all stars. They're borderline all stars. They're championship level players, and the reason why it didn't work, there's just too much going on. Like you have these older players: Skylar Diggins, Courtney Vandersloot, Azare Stevens, Natasha Cloud. I mean, Azare's 30, Skylar's 36, Courtney's 37, Natasha Cloud's 34, and then you have the other younger side of this roster that you were maybe hoping could get more playing time and show what they can do. And throughout the season, they have had moments. I'm talking about players like Gabriella Jaquez, Sydney Taylor, 22, 25 years old, Rakia Jackson, she's 25. She's not even in her prime yet. Camila Cardosa, 25. It's a very split roster. And I understand the thought process by the Chicago Sky at the beginning of the year, thinking, well, we need to spend this money anyway. Let's get some free agents. Let's get some people excited about the team, and then we'll worry about the younger players later, right? Because you look at players like Dejanay Carrington, off the books, right? She's off the books after this year? Yeah, off the books after this year. And Tasha Cloud, off the books. These are all 1 year deals. Um, Rachel Banham, who's a little bit older, but doesn't really command a lot of money or like uh, touches. She's off the books. Um, as we get through the rest of this roster, Azare's going to be here next year. Skylar's going to be here next year. Possibly they probably going to trade her. Courtney Vandersloot's going to be here at the by the end of the contract. She's going to be like 39. Yeesh. Yeah. So the long term looks a little bit better than the short term. Um, the only player that's really locked in as of right now, as of the recording of this video, is Azare, who's going to be on this team till 2029, making $1 million+ per year. The cap is going up every year, though. Um, I feel like I'm going to say something that I said last year about the Seattle Storm. And the Seattle Storm were one of the biggest losers because it was such a. Were they last year? I don't remember. I meant to look at it before I hit record, but I don't know if they were or not. But I pleaded with the Seattle Storm and saying, hey, I know it's fun to have like a competitive team with these names and whatever these veteran players. Just commit to the tank. Just tank. It's okay. And the other wrinkle in this is that the Chicago Sky did not control their draft pick this year. They didn't. They traded it away in a trade, and the Washington Mystics have control over the um, Chicago Sky pick. So, however bad the Washington Mystics are, that's where the Chicago Sky will be picking. And I understand that as well, where it's like, well, we can't control our draft picks. Let's just get some older players and see what we can do this season, maybe make some noise. That didn't happen. Um, I'm going to plead with the Chicago Sky, commit to the tank. The just tank. There's no reason to have Skylar Diggins on this team. There's no reason to have Dejanay Carrington on this team. There's no reason to have Natasha Cloud on this team. Um, you need to commit to Camila Cardosa, a healthy Rakia Jackson, Gabriella Jaquez, who's looked like a great glue player. Sydney Taylor has been a revelation, like I said at the beginning. Um, you need to commit to that. I can't, in good faith, look at this team and think they're going to be any different next year if they run this back. I can't, in good faith, believe that. I really can't. Now, if it's the same team and Rakia Jackson's healthy, is it any different? Possibly, maybe. because I have watched a lot of Chicago Sky games, and they are in a lot of games. They play surprisingly very well at times against certain opponents. Um, does Rickea Jackson solve any of that? I don't know because I don't know what version of Rickea Jackson we're getting, and I don't know what touches Rickea Jackson's going to get. Because again, you have a lot of log jams at these spots. You have Skylar Diggins, you have Courtney Vandersloot, you have Dejanay Carrington, you have Natasha Cloud. When you plainly have Gabriella Hawkes, Sydney Taylor, players that need playing time, they need to play. They can't just like be on the bench all the time. And I understand Sydney Taylor did start some games previous before her injury. Um, I just don't need all these old players personally. I just don't. Players like Azare Stevens, cool. You can run her with Camila Cardosa. Even Dejanay, she played the two, the three a little bit. I can maybe see that in the future. She's only 28 years old. She's not even 30 yet. Maybe I could see that. These really old players, nah. And the veteran leadership is one thing. I get the coach isn't the best, so maybe you want some veteran leadership because the coach isn't really good at leading. But I don't know. I feel like this team from the get go, we knew what was going to happen this season for the Chicago Sky, and it just went so much worse than I think we all imagined. It just went so much worse. We knew at one point it was going to be a logjam. We didn't know Sydney Taylor was going to be this good, so we thought it was just going to be a logjam with, oh, Gabriella Hawkes, the rookie, she's going to come off the bench, of course, right? Because then you have Skylar, you have Dejanay, you have Natasha Cloud, and we even thought Dejanay was going to start the season healthy. She did not. So it opened up a lot of playing time, and, you know, these younger players sort of took advantage of it, and now you're in a no-win situation where you keep the older players to have this facade of being competitive and having these big names, but you also have these young players who need to play, and they're playing well above their their touches, their minutes. Um, it's just become a really weird team where I can see the bones of like a good starting five. That doesn't include any of the older players, sans Stevens, because Stevens is here for the long haul. Um, but also, like Elizabeth Williams is pretty good. Looking at some of these other names on this roster, I just feel like you're heading towards a way where you're gonna have to commit to a little bit of a tank anyway, where you're just bad. And I don't even know if they own any of their draft picks going forward. Yeah, I don't even know or if it's a swap or anything, but um, maybe. Maybe you could convince me to run this back and try it again. But I feel like every time the Chicago Sky do something right, they wrong somebody on their team. And they've wronged Skylar Diggins. Skylar Diggins probably doesn't want to be there. Um, I personally, again, I would just gut this team and go young, go completely young. Maybe a couple older players to just fill out the locker room and stuff. But they're losers because they don't know what they're doing. That's the bottom line. If I had to yeah, if I had to give you a brief description, it's because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they want to do either. Um, yeah. Moving on to another team here, who I don't think they know what they're doing. Well, I think they know what they're doing, and it doesn't feel good. The Phoenix Mercury here. Man, oh man, where do I start? Well, in the off season, they lost one of their primetime players in Satu Sabali for reasons. Um, they nobody wanted to come to Phoenix. They couldn't convince anybody to want to come and play in Phoenix for a bunch of reasons. Free agents like Skylar Diggins, Natasha Cloud had previous stints in Phoenix and didn't want to go back. Um, they couldn't afford or didn't want to pay any big time player that was a free agent like um, Nafisa Collier. We already mentioned Skylar Diggins, Asia Wilson. They didn't want to pay any of those players, and none of those players even took a meeting with them because they were returning to their original teams. Um, yeah, they had a disastrous offseason, and the season only got worse. And I sat here at the beginning of the season. I said this team is going to be bad. I know it's going to be bad because you're relying on Alyssa Thomas, a 34-year-old Alyssa Thomas, to do the bulk of the grunt work and the leadership and the scoring and all this other stuff that she just isn't equipped to do at her age. And be quite frankly, she was never equipped to do. She was just in a different situation where the team was slightly better, so she looks slightly better. But when the team's bad, Alyssa Thomas looks bad, and when Alyssa Thomas looks bad, your best player ends up being Kalia Copper at 31 years old. Who Kalia Copper, immensely talented, but she's really like a number two, and Alyssa Thomas is really like a number three on a really good team. And you hope the surrounding cast, you hope you have a franchise player that can elevate Alyssa Thomas and Clea Copper at their advanced ages, younger player. And they don't have any of that. And they won't have any of that in the future because they gave up all their draft picks at the trade deadline to trade for Kelsey Plum, who is a free agent at the end of this season, who they have to convince to come back, or they've sold the farm for less than 10 games of Kelsey Plum. Um, that's the short and sweet version of it. To get into the weeds about it, uh, Alyssa Thomas, I don't know what what to say that would be nice to say about her this season. Um, it's been a disastrous season. I was told last year by a bunch of players that she leads her teams to success. She's a winning player. She leads the WNBA in WNBA history in triple doubles. Which one of those is a fact? She does. Um, I've never been the biggest Alyssa Thomas fan for a lot of reasons, but I feel like anybody that plays with her doesn't want to play with her again. And that's not to diss her or anything. She's just an acquired taste. Obviously, Kalia Copper likes playing with her. Obviously, um, some Sammy Whitcomb likes playing with her. Natasha Max likes playing with her. Lexi Heald likes playing with her. Um, there are some hangarounds, some players that want to play with her because she is a very gifted passer. She does get her teammates involved, and she does make your life easier. If you're a perimeter player or somebody who can get out in transition, she makes your life easy. If you're anything other than that, it becomes very difficult for you to play with Alyssa Thomas. And I think this team's main mistake was getting infatuated with the fact that they made the finals last year, thinking they could do it again with lesser talent. And I don't know that for a concrete fact that they thought that. I don't know if they got jump scared, they got surprised by the exit of Satu Sabali. Um, I don't know if that's something that was never discussed between Satu and the Mercury. I just know they were left high and dry, and they had nowhere to pivot. And they continued. They said, you know what? We're in a hole already. We've dug ourselves in a hole enough. We can still see the sunlight. Maybe it's time to move on. Maybe it's time to go into a rebuild the rebuild, so to speak. Maybe it's time. You look at the talent, you look at the contracts. Alyssa Thomas is going to be here well beyond 2028. Clay Copper's here till the end of 2028, the season 2028. Um, Natasha Max here till 2028, I think, right? I think this is lining up correctly. Or 2027. Actually, let me refresh this page. Let me see if it's going to. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, Alyssa Thomas is here till after 2028, or till 2028. Clea Copper's here till after 2027. So after the 2027 season, she's a free agent. And then Natasha Max, the other player that's here. Um, and then you maybe have the possibility of Kelsey Plum, who's also 31 years old, that maybe you sign her to a short-term deal, get her to line up with Alyssa Thomas, an additional 2 years on that contract, and then you explode the team in 2028. I don't know. My point being is that this team said, you know what? At the trade deadline, we're bad already. We think we can sneak into the playoffs, though. Let's go get Kelsey Plum, right? And I'm a big Kelsey Plum fan. I love Plummer. Um, I don't know if Kelsey Plum fixes your problems this season. I don't know if she fixes it next season. And quite frankly, I don't know what this team does in the future. And by the future, I mean 2027, 2028. Because 2027, 2028 are two back-to-back really good draft classes, and you're going to miss out on that talent for maybe just fake competing in those 2 years. And I understand a lot of teams, and this is something a lot of fans don't want to hear. You don't want to hear the word tanking. You don't want to hear the word, we need to be bad to get a better draft pick. Um, but especially in the WNBA, you need to be bad for 2 years back to back. If the Phoenix Mercury are bad this year, right? If they just said, you know what, screw it, let's be bad in 2027, you could have 2 really good years where you are bad. And then maybe in 2027, if they have their pick, I'm not sure if they have their pick, you could get a good draft pick. Maybe. Maybe. But they have said, you know what, we choose mediocrity over thinking about the future. And it's funny because I think about this team sometimes, and I think about the GM in charge of this team, and I think about the coach, and it sort of reminds me of like what's his name, Nico Harrison of the formerly of the Dallas Mavericks, who did the Luka Doncic trade. It's like I think this front office is operating under the fact that hey, it doesn't matter what happens 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the road. We'll be fired by then. We just got to worry about right now and save our jobs. We just got to worry about right now. And I think that's what they're doing. And I always say this. I find it commendable that a team pushes all their chips to the middle of the table and say, hey, we're going to go in on it. Even if it's mediocrity, at least they're trying. There are some teams that are scared. They hold all their assets, they hold all their draft picks, and they say, we're not moving anything. We're too scared. There are other teams that go all in. It is commendable, but this season has been disastrous for them. I didn't even tell you the Chicago Sky record. I can tell you the Phoenix Mercury record here in a second. Um, let's see. Hold on. Let me see. Oh, no. Hold on. Hold on. Standings. Here we go. So yeah, the Chicago Sky are 12 and 22, and then the Phoenix Mercury are right above them, 13 and 22. Yeah. You could say this is somewhat inspiring, I guess. 13 and 22, because the team that's in the eighth spot right now is 19 and 14. You think back to the beginning of the season, you're like, maybe we win a couple more games at the beginning. We don't go on that huge loss streak. We could have gone to 19. We could be a little more feisty. Does Kelsey Plum really elevate you that much? Like I'm talking about next season, because like Kelsey Plum, for what it's worth, and again I'm a huge Kelsey Plum fan. All her seasons away from the Las Vegas Aces have been losing seasons. She hasn't been to the playoffs since she's been not an ace. Maybe you think Alyssa Thomas and Kelsey Plum works really well together. Kalia Copper's there as well. You think that it's an old lineup, and it's an older lineup, and the league's getting nothing but younger, and it's 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 hard for me to believe this team, any iteration of this team that doesn't add somebody else or make another move. I don't even know if they can make another move because they've sold all their draft picks now. This team's going to be good. I feel like this team is going to be right where it's going to be for the next like 2 years. They're going to be like in and out of the playoffs maybe, and then like Alyssa Thomas is going to retire, and they're finally going to be like, okay, now we can rebuild. You know what I mean? I think that's the other part of this is like Alyssa Thomas is holding this whole team up. And to be fair to Alyssa Thomas, again, I'm not trying to bag on the players too much in this video, but y- y- respectfully, I mean this with love. Your time has passed. It's not as good as you think you were, or you're not as good as you think you are. Um, Maybe good stats, bad team, player now, but personally, I don't think any team with Alyssa Thomas has her as their star player is a legitimate team. I feel like last year, for sure, now we know that it was a fluke them getting to the finals. We know it was a fluke. Um, Now, to cover my bases once more, this is not an Alyssa Thomas's fault. This is not a Clea Copper's fault. This is the front office fault. I don't know who let them do this. What happened in free agency? It's been disastrous, and the Phoenix Mercury should be on watch for diabolical things because I don't know what they're gonna do in the future. I really don't. Um, Heading over to the West Coast here, we're gonna talk about the Los Angeles Sparks. Man, oh man, this is a team that I feel sort of good about. and they're only a loser because the season's been bad, but and there's been injuries left and right for them. But I feel good for them because I think it's coming to a closure. The GM has been fired already that made these stupid moves. The coach is probably going to get fired at the end of this year, Lynn Roberts. I wouldn't be surprised if she's fired in the next week or two, to be completely honest. And hopefully they bring in somebody who knows what they're doing, and will this team will stop being fake contenders. Um, their cap sheet looks impeccable. It looks immaculate. Um, NECA's a free agent after this year. Oh, God, I got to reload this page. Hold on. The numbers are off here. NECA's a free agent after this year, so she's off the books. Emma Cannon's off the books. You do have some restricted free agency stuff coming up here. Cam Brink in 2028 will be a restricted free agent. Ray Burrell is a free agent this coming season, 2020. After this season, she's a restricted free agent. Um, damn. Yeah, that's their two young like go get him players. I mean, Kate Martin's here. I don't know how to feel about Kate Martin. I want her to be good, but I just don't know if she's going to be good. Oh, you have Cole McConney, who you got in the Kelsey Plum trade, who's locked up at least next year. Um, I look at this team and I'm reminded of all the young talent they used to have and how they gave it away for free. This used to be a team of Cam Brink, Ray Burrell, Rakia Jackson, and it looked promising. It looked good, and it's just been a disaster of a front office. If the Phoenix Mercury are fake contending, that's like little league stuff. That's minor league stuff to what the Los Angeles Sparks convinced themselves of. The Los Angeles Sparks thought they were going to be some big bad team in the West for like 3 years when they got Kelsey Plum, and it ended in Kelsey Plum not being there anymore, Rakia Jackson not being there anymore, Cam Brink not being able to stay healthy, Ray Burrell doing something at least. She looks like she's evolving her game, which is really good, and this team has just been nothing but like, oh, let's get Darika Hamby. She's good, right? She hasn't been really good with the Sparks. Oh, let's get NECA. She can be our all-time leading scorer in franchise history, which she is now. Congratulations to her. She has a bad year. Oh, let's get Ariel Atkins, who had a really good year last year. Let's pay her $1 million per year for the next 3 years. Yeah, let's do that. Oh man, it just became a disaster so quick, and I think the only blessing in disguise is that blessing in disguise is that the Los Angeles Sparks were not sold with the LA Lakers. So the Sparks fans can remain with the team for other reasons, purely basketball reasons. Um, yeah, this team has just gone downhill. I think they were here last year. I genuinely do think they. I mean, let's look. Let's look. I need to know who I had on this last year because I know they were here last year because they barely missed the playoffs last year, and I was very hopeful that they could make the playoffs this year. And I said at the beginning of this season, they need to start off better. If they start off good and they taper off at the end, fine. But they need to start the season well, and they didn't. And they didn't. To be fair to them, the product on the floor hasn't looked terrible. It hasn't. It's looked okay at times. Um, I don't I don't think it's completely fair to call the team bad. I think it's everything surrounding them that's been bad. The coaching decisions, the GM decisions. There are games where I watch the team. I watched them last night. They played the Liberty, right? Yeah, they played the Liberty. And the Liberty for all their faults almost lost that game, but on the other side, the Sparks played very well. They played up they play up to their competition. They know what's in store, and you can credit that to the older players on this team knowing how to come prepared every night. Even if they don't have good games statistically, at least they're active in the game. And you look at maybe you think about, hey, We need to free up some space here. We got Cam Brink. She's coming up on some uh, restricted free agency stuff. Ray Burrell. Maybe you think, okay, Neka's our franchise player, definitively. She leads the Sparks in franchise scoring, right? We need to keep her, or at least if she wants to leave, we let her leave, and if she wants to stay, we keep her. Darica Hamby, I've come on here a few times after the All Star break, and I just think Darica Hamby's such a gimmicky player, and I feel so bad saying that because she used to be an ace, used to be a Las Vegas ace. I just don't know what's going on with her. I just feel like maybe like there are certain matchups that just like expose her so much, and those matchups are the really good teams. And when you can't beat the really good teams, it's you're not worth your paycheck anymore. I'm sorry, you're just not. Um, Credit to NECA for trying to keep this team competitive. I mean, she comes every night and plays. She hasn't played like the second best player in the league like I thought she was going to be at the beginning of the season, but she's 36, man. She's not getting any younger. She's not. Um, I think I don't know what to do with this team. The other bright spot outside of Ray Burrell, which I mentioned already, they traded Kelsey Plum to Phoenix in that trade, and they got Phoenix's draft pick out of that, and they have two draft picks in this next year's draft. That could be anywhere from the top 8 to number 1 and number 2, which is crazy. And they could even package two of these picks and trade up to 1 or 2 or 3, which is amazing. Um, I guess that's the farewell job that the GM did. I think they made that trade. They fired the GM and then they did that trade. So not a farewell, but a welcome to running the team trade for the new GM or whoever's in charge of the team. That was very smart. Getting two picks in this draft class is very smart because, hey, if one doesn't work out, you got another one, right? Um, yeah, they are 12 and 21. Jeez. Jeez, man. Yeah. What were they last year? That's an interesting. What were they last year? That is a interesting question that we can answer right now. Los Angeles Sparks. Here we go. Let's see. What were they last year? Last year they were 21 and 20 21 and 23. Oh man. Um what a fall. And the year previous to that in 2024 they were 8 and 32. Yeah, man. Yikes. Yikes. Yeah. Okay. Um I think that's it for the Sparks. Let's move on here. I think the best thing is to see what the draft brings you and um, maybe try to move around some contracts and go back to being a little bit younger. Yeah, that's what I'd say. And the last team here, who, again, isn't really a loser, but I feel like their whole fan base has just been up in arms the whole year. The Dallas Wings. They're in the playoffs right now. I believe they're the seventh seed. I just looked at it. Yeah, they are 20 and 14. Um, they're dealing with a lot of injuries right now. The fans hate the coach. Some are even questioning the GM at this point because he didn't make any moves at the trade deadline for glaring problems that they had. They don't have a draft pick this next year. I don't think that's going to be particularly high because they've actually been, again, pretty good this year. Um, they'll be number 9 right now. It's projected to be number 9. So might still be in the top 10, get another young player to add to their team. Um, I've I've gone back and forth with Wings fans on a lot of things. Um, some Wings fans were very optimistic about the season at the beginning, saying this is a championship year, especially after the emergence of Jessica Shepard in those first couple months of the season. They were like, this is a championship year. We just make a few more moves, whatever, whatever. I looked at this team when I looked at it very young. I look at the deficiency they had at the beginning of the season that they still have. They don't have a defensive big, even though I like Jess Shepard. I like Lee Yuru. Elena Smith missed some part of the season, and then when she did play at the beginning of the half, she looked terrible. Former Defensive Player of the Year. Um, it just hasn't come together at the right time, and I feel like this team has been plagued by um, just bad timing, for real, just bad timing. AZ Fudd's out right now with a knee injury of some variety. It's the same knee she had surgery on a couple years ago. That isn't great. Jess Shepard tweaked her ankle, and it's looking like it's going to be either a really turnaround, like, okay, playoffs are happening, everybody's healthy, let's go, let's make it past the first round, or they're going to get bounced in the first round by somebody. um, this team is in a weird spot because you're going to have to pay Paige soon. AZ is a little bit further down the road, but you're going to have to pay AZ. It's going to become a very awkward conversation to have with who's getting paid, who's not getting paid. Arike obviously isn't going to be on this team next year. I thought they were just going to let her walk for nothing. Um, she's probably not going to be on this team anyway next year. Um, and just a bunch of weird. The rotations are weird. I don't watch them that much, so I don't know about the rotations like that. But like, you have a lot of players that deserve playing time. I mean, I look at all these players, right? Sans like the older players. I look at like Lee Yaru, Isaiah James, Paige Beckers, AZ Fudd, Maddie Sigrist, Awak Courier, Jessica Shepard, Arike Agumawale, Elena Smith. These are all like names like I think casual fans would know, and you're like, oh, this is a really good team, and you're not going to lose a lot. I mean, Lee Yaru's a free agent after this year. Um, a walk is a free agent. Everybody else is locked up. So you do have time. You have lots of time to maybe make this team a little bit better in the short term and maybe not make championship moves yet, but consolidate some of your assets. And they were here last year. I had them as one of the biggest losers of the WNBA season this past year. Not this year, but the one before, this last season. And I said, they should they should draft well. And for all the things I don't like about the way they've constructed the roster, I think they have drafted. They have drafted well. They've managed to have the revelation that is Jess Shepard. Um, there's a bunch of positives, and I think this is probably the most positive loser is the future is the brightest that it probably could be. You just need a little bit better asset management of who's on the team, who's getting used. Like if a player isn't getting used, you have to let them go. And I understand like you covet your assets as much as you can until you get the best offer you can. But like Maddie Sigrist just hasn't played like she should have played this season. And a little bit's on her, a little bit's on the coaching as well. But like she's a restricted free agent. Either you're gonna match what a team gives her, or you're gonna let her walk for nothing anyway. So maybe you just should have traded her at the trade deadline. I don't know. This is one of the weirder ones where I didn't want to put them here again, but like all these other teams that are bad actually aren't bad. They're just young, or they're just like in a transition process. Seattle Storm did what I said they should have done last year and did the rebuild. They don't even have 10 wins on the season. Connecticut Sun are leaving Connecticut to go to Houston. They're being relocated, so they haven't really been competitive. Toronto Tempo, this is their inaugural season. They've had some great moments, but they haven't had to. They weren't asked to be good. They weren't expected to be good, and they're just right where they should be. And they're going to get a good draft pick next year. Portland Fire have been surprisingly good, but nobody expected anything from them. So there's that. And then there's all the other teams that I've mentioned here. The Mercury, the Sparks, the Chicago Sky, that are actual losers of this season because they fumbled so many things in the process before the season, during the season, and yeah. And then you have the Wings, who are in the playoffs right now, and we'll see what they can do. But I'm not holding my breath that this is a championship year, like some Wings fans maybe delusionally thought or irrationally thought. I don't know. But yeah, that's it. That's the video. Um, this was my biggest losers of the WNBA season. I don't think anything's gonna change. There's only like less than a dozen games left, so if something does change and one of these teams like makes a miraculous run, hey, that's on me. But for now, this is the biggest losers of the 2026 WNBA season. Um, check out the video on the left. Check out the playlist on the right. The end screen should be playing right now. Click my little icon right in the middle of the screen. If you want to subscribe, a little subscriber will pop up right there. And like and comment as well. And I will see you guys next time. Cheers.